The 1980s, the time when neon lights flicker across darkened arcade rooms, the air thick with the sound of blipping machines and the thrill of competition. A time when arcades were the heart of every mall, and a quarter could transport you into a world of space battles, pixelated adventures, and high scores. Today, we're looking back at 10 forgotten video games from the 80s that didn't just capture our attention. They changed the arcade forever. These games defined an era, but as the years went on, many of them faded into the background. Let's take a walk down memory lane and see how these games forever altered the gaming landscape. 1. Space Invaders, 1978. The game that started it all. While not technically in the 80s, Space Invaders was still rocking arcades at the dawn of the 80s. This simple yet captivating game where players shoot at descending waves of aliens became an instant classic. With its iconic laser blasts and increasingly challenging levels, it ignited the passion for arcade gaming. Its success proved there was a market for video games in public spaces, laying the groundwork for everything that followed. So why did it fade away? As faster, flashier games emerged, Space Invaders was eventually overshadowed, but its impact is undeniable. It created the foundation for all future arcade games. 2. Pac-Man, 1980. The Yellow Hero. Pac-Man isn't just a game, it's a piece of cultural history. Released in 1980, this bright, cheery maze chase game introduced the world to Pac-Man and his quest to eat pellets while avoiding ghosts. What made Pac-Man unique was its broad appeal. It was one of the first video games to attract women, thanks to its non-violent gameplay. The franchise exploded with merchandise, sequels, and even a cartoon. But as arcades grew more competitive, the simple chase became a little less exciting, and Pac-Man eventually gave way to more complex, action-packed games. Still, you can't think of the 80s arcade without thinking of that yellow face. 3. Donkey Kong, 1981. The birth of Mario. Before he was jumping through pipes and saving princesses, Mario was just a carpenter trying to save his girlfriend from a giant ape in Donkey Kong. Released in 1981, this game marked the birth of Nintendo's beloved mascot, Mario, who would go on to star in some of the biggest games in history. The game was revolutionary, offering both challenging gameplay and a story. But as the industry moved toward faster-paced action and better graphics, Donkey Kong started to show its age. Even so, Mario's debut in this game remains one of the most important moments in video game history. 4. Asteroids, 1979. The ultimate space shooter. Space was vast, dark, and full of dangers, and Asteroids was a game that made it fun to navigate. Released in 1979, but dominating through the early 80s. This game asked players to blast asteroids into smaller pieces while dodging enemy UFOs. It had a simple vector-based design, but that's what made it so addicting. The unique controls, where players could rotate and thrust their ship in any direction, gave the game a feeling of freedom not found in most other games. Asteroids was eventually outpaced by flashier 3D shooters, but was a classic that laid the groundwork for the space shooter genre. 5. Centipede, 1980. A frenzied, bug-squashing adventure. In Centipede, you controlled a little shooter at the bottom of the screen, fending off waves of creepy crawly insects, including the infamous centipede itself. Released in 1980, this game was one of the first to feature a trackball for movement, a feature that set it apart from the usual joystick controls. The colorful, frantic action made it a fan favorite. But as games got more complex and visually advanced, Centipede lost its spot as an arcade mainstay. Still, its addictive gameplay made it a treasure of its time, and it was a perfect example of how arcade games could mix fast-paced action with fun visuals. 6. Defender, 1981. The space shooter with a twist. Defender was an intense, high-speed space shooter that set itself apart with its use of horizontal scrolling, a feature that made the gameplay feel like an action-packed space battle. The objective was to protect humanoids from alien invaders while navigating across a constantly scrolling screen. What made Defender stand out was its complexity. It was difficult, but mastering it felt like a huge achievement. As time passed, simpler games took center stage, and Defender was eventually forgotten. However, its innovative design influenced many shooters to come. 7. Frogger, 1981. The game with the most heart. Who knew that guiding a frog across a busy highway and a raging river could be so entertaining? Frogger, released in 1981, took the concept of simple gameplay and turned it into a stressful yet delightful adventure. With its catchy sound effects and bright, simple graphics, Frogger captured the hearts of gamers. Its charm made it one of the most beloved games of the early 80s, but as the graphics and action in other arcade games evolved, Frogger slowly hopped off the scene. Despite its fall from the limelight, it remains an enduring symbol of arcade fun. 8. Q****, 1982. The puzzle game with personality. Imagine jumping around a pyramid of cubes while avoiding enemies and solving puzzles. That's Burt Asterisk in a nutshell. Released in 1982, this colorful game featured a quirky, orange character with a knack for jumping in all directions to change the color of cubes. Its unique gameplay mechanics and charming character made a hit, but over time, it fell victim to more fast-paced, action-driven games of the era. Burt Asterisk is now a relative past, but for those who remember, it remains one of the most distinct games of the arcade golden age. 9. Tempest, 1981. The game that was ahead of its time. Tempest was one of the most visually innovative games of the 80s, offering a futuristic, 3D-looking world despite the limited technology at the time. Players controlled a spaceship that moved along a wireframe tunnel, shooting at enemies and dodging obstacles. The vector-based graphics and unique, rotational gameplay were revolutionary, making it a standout in the arcade. Sadly, its complexity and unconventional design made it harder for some players to pick up, causing it to fade from memory. Tempest was a game ahead of its time, and if you remember it, you know it was something special. 10. Galaga, 1981. The space shooter with endless replayability. Galaga took the basic concept of Space Invaders and made it faster, more exciting, and far more challenging. Released in 1981, it featured an array of alien enemies that swooped down in intricate patterns while you tried to shoot them down. Its most memorable feature was the ability to rescue a captured ship, allowing you to double your firepower. Despite being a fan favorite, it eventually faded as newer, more complex games took over. However, Galaga's fast-paced action and strategy make it one of the arcade's timeless classics. And that's a look back at 10 forgotten video games from the 80s that forever changed the arcade scene. These games introduce us to new worlds, new challenges, and new ways to compete and connect. Some of them have been lost to time, but their legacy lives on in the games we play today. If you've got any memories of these old school classics, drop a comment below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss another trip down memory lane. Until next time, keep the nostalgia alive.